This is The Cousins by Karen M. McManus, Chapter 7. I don't know whether it's to his credit or not that he doesn't try to deny it. Why did I even bring that damn license? Other Jonah mutters. He looks furious, but I think it's mostly at himself. Yeah, well, this was only confirmation, I say. I pull Jonah's thick black wallet from my jeans pocket and stuff the license inside. It served its purpose now, and I already took a picture with my phone, so I hand the wallet to him. You're polishing off an entire plate of shrimp linguine when you have a shellfish energy is what tipped me off. As soon as Jonah started eating his dinner at the Sevens, I waited for his face to swell up like it did when he ate a shrimp wrapped in bacon 9 years ago at our house. I was shocked that he didn't even turn a little red. When I went to get my drink on the opposite side of the bar, I googled, "Can you grow out of a shellfish allergy?" and learned that while it's not impossible, it's highly unlikely, and there's usually still at least some reaction. Enough that most people would avoid inhaling an entire plate of them in under 5 minutes. Maybe I could have accepted my alleged cousin as one of the lucky few if it weren't for the fact that this boy has never fit as Jonah Story. From the first time I saw him on the ferry, he didn't make sense, even allowing the space for 9 years. For another, although he made a solid early effort at copying my cousin's obnoxious mannerisms, he hasn't been able to keep it up. This Jonah is annoying in his own way. He has a bad attitude and a chip on his shoulder about something, clearly, but he doesn't have the same analytical academic tone as Jonah Story. Are you kidding me? Jonah's tense expressions turns to outraged belief. A shellfish allergy? Thanks, JT. That would have been useful information to have. Who's JT? I ask, although I think I know. Jonah's jaw ticks, and he regards me in silence for a few seconds like he's weighing how much to say. Your cousin, he finally admits. We go to school together, and people call him JT, so they don't get us confused. His middle name is Theodore, but I guess you already know that. I don't, and if I ever did, I've forgotten, but Jonah North doesn't need to know that. I can't help the satisfied smirk at the idea of my cousin being the secondary Jonah somewhere. I'll bet that bugs the crap out of him. So he knew you were doing this? Jonah hesitates, rubbing the back of his neck with one hand as conflicting emotions skitter across his face. He asked me to do this, he says. He asked you to pose as him? My voice edges upward in disbelief. Shh, Jonah says, even though we're the only ones out here. He looks at the dumpster beside us, his mouth twisting. Look, I can't think straight with the stench. I'm moving. You can come with me? Or not. Oh, I'm right behind you, I say secretly relieved as Jonah heads for the back of the parking lot. When we reach the edge of a grassy path, I grab his arm. This is fine, far enough. Spill the rest. Why did Jonah, or JT or whatever, ask you to pose as him? Away from the lights at the restaurant, Jonah's face is nothing but shadows. I'll tell you everything, but I have one condition. He raises his voice to cut off the protest I'm about to launch. You don't tell anybody who I really am. Well, you can tell Aubrey, but that's it. I'm sorry, what? Jonah doesn't answer, and I fold my arms tightly across my chest. It feels like the temperature dropped by at least 15 degrees since we arrived at Dunes, and the sleeveless top that was fine inside the crowded restaurant isn't doing me any favors out here. Jonah, on the other hand, looks perfectly comfortable in a flannel shirt over his usual faded t-shirt. You don't get to make the rules when you're the one committing fraud. Jonah shrugs. Okay then, have a good night. He turns away, and I lunge for his arm. You can't just leave. I can if we don't have a deal. I sputter for another few seconds until it occurs to me that lying to a liar isn't the worst sin I could commit. Okay, fine. I won't tell. Jonah turns so he's fully facing me once again. I don't really believe you, he says almost to himself, but I can always drag you down with me if I get caught. So there's that. No wonder you and JT are friends, I snap. You have a lot in common. I never said we were friends, Jonah says coldly. This is a business arrangement. I force myself to keep quiet, and after a few seconds, he blows out a sigh. Here's the thing. JT wanted to go to science camp, which you knew, right? I nod. His father said no once they got the invitation from your grandmother. JT was pissed because he got a scholarship and everything, which is tough to do, and Anders still told him he had to come here. I got in the same camp, but I didn't get the scholarship, so I couldn't go. A note of bitterness creeps into Jonah's voice as he adds, "The whole thing was JT's idea. He heard me talking at school about not being able to go to camp and cornered me in the cafeteria one day, saying we could help each other out. His jaw ticks. For a second, I thought he was going to offer me his scholarship, which is stupid. JT's not that kind of guy, and anyway, it probably wasn't transferable like that. But he said he'd pay me to go to Gull Cove Island in his place and not tell anyone. He'd go to science camp, and I'd get this sweet summer job with an extra bonus from him." "Extra bonus," I raise. "How much? What's the rate going for impersonation these days?" "Enough," Jonah says shortly. The wind picks up and I shiver as I clutch my arms more tightly. Jonah starts taking off his flannel shirt, but I stop him with an upraised hand. "Don't bother, Lancelot. I'm good. Did you guys even think this through? I mean, to be perfectly blunt, we're all here to get into Mildred's good graces. What did Jonah or JT or whatever think was going to happen when she realized he sent a fake?" Jonah shrugs his shirt back on. "He didn't believe your grandmother actually planned to do anything for you or your families. He thought it was just some weird game she decided to play that would mess with his future for no good reason, which, given how things are going so far, seems about right. Ugh, I hate that JT Story didn't harbor any pointless hope like me and Aubrey. The fact that we were gullible and he's spending his summer exactly how he wanted sharpens my tone. And how did you expect to pull this off for 2 months? I figured it out in less than a week and I wasn't even trying." Jonah rakes a hand through his hair. "God, I don't know right now. It's JT and I are the same age, from the same town, and we have the same first name. We have the same coloring. The resort never asked for a photo ID, just a birth certificate. JT has like zero social media presence, so it's not like anybody would expect him to be posting about his summer. He hasn't seen you or Aubrey in years, and his grandmother ever. And he gave me lots of background on your family. That whole you know what you did letter, plus stuff about your and Aubrey's parents, and the different ways everyone tried to get back in touch with Mildred over the years. I thought I had all the information I needed." He shakes his hand in disgust. Shellfish allergy. God damn him. "So was that you messaging me and Aubrey back when we first got the letters?" I ask. "Or was that JT?" "It was JT. When you guys started the group chat, that was all real. He thought he'd have to go to the island with you. Then once I agreed to take his place, he just played along like nothing had changed. He gave me the printouts of all the chats so I'd know what you talked about." "What's your deal then? Who are you?" "You saw the license. I'm Jonah North. I live in Providence and go to high school with your cousin. I needed the cash, so I posed as him when he asked me to. That's it." What do you care if I tell then? You got your money." "It's an installment plan," Jonah says. "I only got the first third. Plus, Gull Cove Resort pays way better than what I'd make working at my parents' place." "Is it more than you would have made on the Agent Undeclared set?" Jonah's tone gets wistful. "No, but I couldn't say yes to that. I'm supposed to send pictures of the resort every week so JT can convince his father that he's working here." "Where do your parents think you are?" "Here, at a cushy summer job I lucked into. They just don't know what name I'm using." "You said you used to work for them? What kind of place do they have?" "It doesn't matter." Jonah takes a step back and I can see him clearly in the moonlight. I'm not sure why that particular question was his breaking point, but he looks entirely done, tense and exhausted, every angle of his face pronounced. "Listen, I'm going back to the dorms. I know I can't make you keep your word about this, but I hope you do." Then he turns and starts walking away. I contemplate following him, but I have plenty more questions, and he owes me some answers. But in the end, I retrace my steps toward dunes, heading inside to the only person currently on the island who's related to me. I'm halfway there when something warm and soft materializes in my hand. I turn to see Jonah North in a t-shirt, shoving his flannel at me. "For the walk home," he says, before disappearing into the shadows. The next night, I'm still preoccupied, waiting tables in veranda on autopilot. I lifted my phone a dozen times today to text my mother. Jonah is a fake. But I didn't do it. I told Aubrey, who was almost comically shocked, but so far that's it. I'm not sure what's stopping me, except maybe that I can't untell the truth once it's out. Luckily, I'm not busy tonight. Head of hospitality Carson Fine is supervising the dining room, and he's been insisting I get lengthy breaks between tables because I'm so new. Although I think his real reason is that he wants to gossip with me at the bar. We're sitting there now, his chin in his hands as he peppers me with questions about Mildred. So you never met her at all before last weekend? He asks. Tonight, his tie is patterned with bright pink seashells against a purple background. Never, I say. There's no point in pretending otherwise. The Story Kid's disinheritance isn't a secret. Every time Mom or her brothers tried to claim their legal right to some of my grandfather's fortune, they had to release more details about how they'd been cut off. It's all so gothic, Carson says in a tone of hushed awe, and so strange. Mrs. Story couldn't be lovelier to her employees and people around town. Why would she be so ruthless with her own children? That's the one part of the story Google can't tell you, and Carson is clearly hoping that I can. No idea, I say. We've never known. He visibly deflates. Well, at least she brought you here. That's something. And then she took off. That can't have escaped Carson's notice, and maybe I can use his avid curiosity to my advantage. The longer Mildred goes without contacting us, the more convinced I am that there's something off about this entire summer. And it all started with a letter telling us to coordinate with Edward Franklin. I wonder if we might have gotten our dates mixed up. I deliver the lie with a faintly perplexed smile, draining the last of my water. Veranda's bartender, appears out of nowhere to refill my glass. Everyone at Gull Cove Resort is under the impression that my cousins and I have some sort of pull with Mildred, so we get better service than the guests. I was thinking about touching base with Edward Franklin to double check, but the only contact information I have for him is his resort email address. I wait a couple of beats like I'm lost in thought. I don't suppose you have, a personal email on file, do you? Or a phone number? I'm sure we do, Carson says, flicking a strand of white blonde hair off his forehead, but I can't give it to you. Privacy laws and all that. Right, I say, crestfallen. I'm debating whether I can convince him to trade the information for some sort of salacious made-up story gossip when Carson's phone buzzes in his pocket. He pulls it out and frowns at the screen. They need me out front for something. Be right back. I watch him wind his way through the dining room until Marty clears his throat. I hadn't realized he was still standing there. Hey, if you want to reach Edward, you could maybe try Chaz, he says. I wrinkled my brow. Why would I try Chaz? He and Edward were a couple for a while. They might still be in touch. Ah, okay, I say, absorbing that. It hadn't occurred to me that Chaz was gay. Or dating. He seemed eager to get off the subject of his love life the one time we touched on it. Thanks, I'll check with him. Is he working tonight, do you know? No, sick day. He'll probably be sick for a while, if you know what I mean. Marty says, miming tipping a bottle to his lips. Oh no, it hasn't escaped my notice how much liquor Chaz sneaks while he's working. People don't usually pick up on my bar tricks unless they have a few of their own. But he's always so professional that I assumed his drinking is under control. Does that, happen often? More than it should. Worst kept secret at the resort. Everyone knows, except Carson. Marty's gaze turns toward the dining room, where Carson's blonde head gleams beneath the restaurant's dim lighting as he makes his way back toward us. Chaz is a good guy, though, and a great bartender when he's sober, so we try to look out for him. Understood, I say, as Carson lifts his hand in a wave. He's not alone, and my heart stops for a second when I realize there's an older woman walking beside him. Is Mildred finally making an appearance? But when they get closer, I realize my mistake. This woman is around the same age as my grandmother, but her hair is gray, not pure white, and she's wearing a simple brown dress and clogs. Carson looks delighted to be by her side, though, and steers her my way with a wide smile. Millie, I have an introduction to make. Your grandmother's assistant, Theresa Ryan, is here to see you. She has news. Carson says it with breathless anticipation, earning a low chuckle from Theresa. She holds out her hand, clasping her warm fingers around mine when I take it. That makes me sound very exciting, doesn't it? Hello, Millie. Lovely to meet you. You too, I say, pulse quickening. My mother had always gotten along well with Theresa. They were only they were the only Yankees fans in a house full of Red Sox fanatics, she used to tell me, and they'd stayed in touch for a few years after my mom's disinheritance. Theresa was always kind, Mom said, but firm that Mildred hadn't shared her reasons with anyone except Donald Camden. Eventually, my mother got frustrated and stopped speaking with her, too. Mrs. Story asked me to come by. She'll be back on the island soon and wanted to have the three of you over to Catman House for brunch on Sunday, not tomorrow. She adds when my eyes widen, she'll be in Boston, and anyway, that's the 4th of July. You children should stay close to the resort. There are always such lovely events planned for staff and guests, and a truly breathtaking fireworks display. I'm sure Carson has told you all about it. I glance at Carson and can read the plea in his fixed smile. Please, Millie, pretend just this once that you didn't tune me out when I started talking about Tauhi activities. Oh, yes, of course, I say. Looking forward to it. Wonderful, I do hope you enjoy, Theresa says. At any rate, your grandmother would like to have you over for brunch this following Sunday on July 11th. I'm hoping that won't be a problem with their work schedules, she adds, turning to Carson with a smile. Of course not, he assures her. Okay, I say, searching Theresa's gaze for a hint of anything behind her words. Does my grandmother want to see us, or does she just feel like she has to in order to keep up appearances? But Theresa's pleasant expression doesn't change. Mrs. Story also wanted to make sure that you leave July 17th open. That's a Saturday, the night of the Summer Gala, and she'd like you to attend as her guests. An image flashes through my mind of my mother at age 18, wearing a white ball gown and her diamond teardrop necklace. The one I wanted so much that I gave up my summer for it. Except, I've realized it's not that simple. Yes, I want that necklace, but more than that, I want Mom to want to give it to me. I want her to be the kind of person who would care about passing along something meaningful from mother to daughter, no strings attached. But she's not. So if I can't have that, then what I really came for is this, the chance to be in the presence of my grandmother, her circle of confidants, and all these Gull Cove Island people who remember Mom as a child and teenager. Because surely, one of them has to know what happened 24 years ago to make Mildred's story sever ties. Because surely, one of them has to know what happened 24 years ago to make Mildred's story sever ties with all four of her children and never look back. And maybe, if I know that, I'll finally be able to understand my mother. Theresa is still talking, and I refocus my wandering attention on her. It's a formal affair, tuxedos for the men and gowns for the women, she explains. We realize you probably don't have the appropriate attire on hand, so you and your cousins should feel free to shop at any of the island boutiques and charge your purchases to the Story account. Despite the weirdness of the situation, it's almost like my childhood shopping fantasy except for the part where Mildred delegates the details to her assistant. Plus, nothing will fit, I say. When Theresa raises her brows again, I flip a hand toward my torso. I'm too short to wear anything full length off the rack. Theresa lets out another soft chuckle. Don't worry, your alterations will be a priority for whichever shop you choose, she says, like that settles the matter. And I guess it does.